Keystone species are organisms that have a large effect on their ecosystem relative to the abundance of these organisms within an ecosystem. These species can decrease the chances of competitive exclusion between species, which happens when they compete for the same resource in an ecosystem. They do this by keeping competitive prey below carrying capacity. This concept was discovered by Robert Payne in 1966 when he did an experiment where he removed starfish, specifically the piaster starfish, from a temperate intertidal food web, as they were the top predator, and he wanted to see what would happen if we removed the top predator. So when Robert removed the top predator, he was surprised to see a decline in the biodiversity from 15 to 8 species. This happened because the starfish no longer had control over the mussel populations. For many years, the starfish had been keeping these populations at bay. After 1 year, the abundance of mussels significantly increased. Barnacles and sponges began to decline because mussels were overcrowding them. This also caused there to be no space or food for chitons and limpets. Algae also declined due to having no space to attach. Obviously, this doesn't show all of the species that were involved, but this shows how the removal of these piaster starfish greatly affected this ecosystem. And that's how we learned about keystone species. We can think about keystone species through the two-eyed seeing concept by Mi'kmaq elder Albert Marshall. This is a practice where we can learn to see with one eye through the strengths of indigenous teachings and knowledge, and use the other eye to see the strengths of Western teachings, bringing these two ways of knowing together for the benefit of everyone. Using this concept, the indigenous perspective on this concept would emphasize the interconnectedness that these keystone species show, along with their spiritual and ecological significance in nature. The Western perspective recognizes these species in a more scientific fashion, focusing on their disproportionate importance compared to their biomass. Using the two-eyed seeing to unite these views allows us to see not only their ecological and scientific importance within ecosystems, but also their cultural and spiritual importance to the land. This can enhance our conservation strategies of important species within ecosystems, especially for keystone species. I would like to acknowledge Rajesh Salvam and Allison Schmidt for teaching these concepts in class and for their guidance throughout this course. I would also like to acknowledge Robert Payne for his work in his experiment on keystone species. I would like to acknowledge Mi'kmaq elder Albert Marshall for his two-eyed seeing concept. And I would also like to recognize that Dalhousie is located on Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of Mi'kmaq. We are all treaty people. We recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched Nova Scotia for over 400 years.